Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Saturn transiting the very last degree of Pisces prior to entering the sign of Aries. This 29th degree we sometimes call the Anaretic degree. We're going to talk about what that means, why we should pay attention to planets at the 29th degree, and in particular, what this transit of Saturn at the 29th degree of Pisces may bring for you based on your horoscopes. I'll be doing horoscopes for all 12 signs. I'll tell you a little bit more about which sign I recommend listening to. You could do your sun or your rising sign. I'll say a little bit about that. And then I'm just going to give you some brief thoughts about how we could frame or think about Saturn at the last degree for everyone before diving into those specific horoscopes. So that is our agenda for today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. If astrology is a part of your spiritual daily practice, then consider this a part of that practice and subscribe to the channel. It helps us tremendously when people who watch regularly just take a moment to subscribe. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, of course, which is nightlightastrology.com. I'm going to take you over there right now because, as you all know who listen regularly, we are in the midst of enrollment season for our year one program, which is called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. There are 4 years worth of professional curriculum at Nightlight. So the school is really made for people who want to develop a professional practice, but many people also take our programs just for the sake of developing your own spiritual practice with astrology and developing a skill that you love, a language, deepening your connection with a language that you love. On the first year course page, you will learn everything there is to know about the program. At the end of today's video, tagged on, there is an informational video about the program. So if you stick around after the daily content, you can learn everything there is to know, like a real in-depth discussion about what the program includes. At the bottom of this page, you'll find the early bird enrollment options. Those are available until May 15th. So you still have a little bit of time to save on the cost of the course. That sale will end on May 15th, so take advantage of it now. Need-based tuition is also available. That you could apply for all the way up until the start of the program, but the need-based tuition allows you to choose your price within a sliding scale of monthly tuition options, and that is there so that people who might be experiencing financial hardship, or maybe you have a really fixed or limited income, we want to make sure that no one's priced out of studying a sacred topic. So if you need a little help, please do use the tuition assistance. It's there to make sure that people like yourself don't have to feel like they're passing up on something they'd really love to do because it doesn't work for your budget. So we always trust people to use the price, use our asking price if you can afford it. But if you need a little help because of circumstances, then use that. The other thing that is coming up at Nightlight that I'm very excited about, my monthly webinars are back in. We had a little bit of a break because I did my webinars a little earlier in the month in April. But if you go to the live talks page on the website, you'll also see that May 15th from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm giving a talk on Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer. This will be a great time to learn more about why Jupiter was traditionally considered exalted in the sign and what this combination has to do with the goddess. It's a really great time to be learning more about this placement as Jupiter is about to enter Cancer in June. Then you'll see in June and July, I have a couple more talks, Uranus in Gemini, trine Pluto in Aquarius, and a talk on the 9th house in July. So you can register for any of those. And if you can't attend live, you always get the recordings afterward, as with all of our courses. If you ever can't attend any of our courses live, they're all archived for you on a website so you can watch them at your own pace. Anyhow, so thank you for listening to that. Let's turn our attention to the real-time clock, where we will look at what Saturn is doing. So here you can see that on May 13th, that is coming up. It's not yet here, but it's close at hand. On May 13th, Saturn will enter this 29th degree of Pisces. That 29th degree is sometimes referred to as the Anaretic degree. The Anaretic degree means the killing degree, which is not like it's not like a super comforting way of thinking about what Saturn or any planet is doing at the 29th degree of a sign. The last degrees of all of the signs are ruled in the dignity scheme that is called the bounds or the terms. The last degrees of the signs are usually ruled by Mars or Saturn. This makes those last degrees from 2,000 years all the way up to modern astrology. The last degrees are usually thought of as critical terminal degrees where a number of very typical manifestations of the symbolism occur. So I want to talk about what those are, and then we're going to roll through some horoscopes. So there are 3 things that I would watch for while Saturn is at this 29th degree. And let's just take a look before I dive into those. Actually, let's take a look at how long it's going to be there. So if we go forward about 2 weeks from May 13th, we're going to see that it's on about May 25th that Saturn enters Aries. So May 13th through the 25th, we're right at about 2 weeks. So with Saturn spending 2 weeks at an anaretic degree, that's going to be a noticeable experience for many people. The way that that is experienced is most likely going to be connected to the themes and topics of the house that Saturn is traveling through in your natal chart, which is why we're going to do some brief horoscopes today. But there are 3 things I think anyone could watch for, and this could really apply to any planet at a critical degree, let's say 27 through 30 of a sign, but specifically that 29th degree in particular. The first theme to watch for, broadly speaking, and again, we're going to apply this to specific house topics based on your natal chart, is culmination. So to culminate, like what does that mean? It's the feeling that something that has some momentum, some history, a story arc behind it is reaching that critical moment of culmination, maybe catharsis, where everything is building up toward an energetic peak moment of expression. The karmic tree is ripe and the fruits are ready to fall off and be harvested. So you could think about it as culmination, harvest, an accumulated moment of catharsis. That is quite typical for a slow-moving planet, especially at the last degree of a sign. And the reason for that is that the slower the planet is moving, the longer it has taken it to do its karmic work in that temple of the zodiac. So in this case, it's Pisces for Saturn. Saturn's been in Pisces for a couple of years. It's going to retrograde back into the sign of Pisces and go back over that critical degree. So this is not the final moment of Saturn in Pisces, but it is one of them. And anytime the planet Saturn moves across a 29th degree, as well as a 0 degree marker in Aries, which we'll be talking about when that comes up on the 25th of May. We'll be spending a little bit of time on that because that critical 1st degree of a sign has slightly different meanings, also very potent. But the transition between 29 and 0 is something that astrologers have talked about for a long time. And one of the ways to think about that 29th degree is in terms of culmination and catharsis. Number 2 is in terms of completion or expiration. When Saturn is at that 29th degree, it brings closure, resolution, completions, endings, or expirations. So you can think of it as a moment of death in the most kind of extreme ominous way. Sometimes it's like that. But other times it's more about something just finishing or expiring, or the end of a process, or the end of a relationship, or the end of a theme that you've been struggling with. Somehow an insight comes and you're no longer struggling with it. The expiration of old karma, the completion of a project or a process. Again, thinking of it as a place of endings. And then number 3 are distinct transitions. So when we talk about a distinct transition, we're talking about one thing ending, and then shortly after, when Saturn transits into the 0 degree of the next sign, something beginning. And so you can think of it as a threshold or a kind of gateway that Saturn is passing through from 29 to 1, which makes the 29th degree really noticeable when it comes to something that is transforming and distinctly transitioning. It's, for example, when you move into a new home and you first get in that new home, you're setting everything up, you're in a transitional space. When you're in the process of moving and packing up an apartment and moving to another one, transitional space. They could even be described in some ways as a liminal space, but transitions occur around the 29th to 0 degrees of signs, especially because the planet will also move into a new whole sign house and activate new topics. So when we get closer to May 25th, on my channel, we will be looking at the transition into the whole sign house of Aries, where we've done a number of horoscopic explorations already, but we'll review that again. So in review, culmination, completion and expiration, and distinct transitions. Now, the key to understanding what that might mean more specifically, first and foremost, is to just pay attention. May 13th to the 25th. What is transitioning? What's culminating? Where is closure, resolution, completion, the exhaustion of a process taking place in your life? Sometimes it's easier to just look for and notice that than to try to anticipate exactly what will occur. It's better to just watch, reflect, take the astrology as the means by which you are viewing the experience, a lens through which you're reflecting upon it, rather than something you're trying to completely figure out in advance. I think for most of us who live with astrology as a spiritual practice in day-to-day life, this actually works better than trying to anticipate exactly what's going to happen. Now, there's also a level at which it helps to know timelines, themes, and topics. And so that's what we're going to do next. Let's put the real-time clock up and let's roll through all 12 signs. Now, I would recommend listening to this for your rising sign. You can also listen to any horoscope for your sun sign. The reason we recommend the rising sign is because all horoscopes are written in or created through a whole sign house format. Since Hellenistic astrology utilizes whole sign houses in general, the whole sign house version of your birth chart will always mirror the rising sign horoscope. And so you're going to get the transits in your rising sign horoscope identical to where they are transiting your natal chart through the whole sign house lens. Again, because this is a Hellenistic channel, so to speak, that's the preferred house system anyway. So I always recommend the rising sign, but feel free to listen to whatever you like. Now, we're going to start with Aries. And what I'm going to do is, let me just back this up. Here we go. And I want to start by saying that, again, part of this is going to be about tracking the entrance of Saturn into the new house. I'm going to focus today on a process of completion taking place in the whole sign house of Pisces. But I do encourage you, if you know your houses, to think about the transition between Pisces and Aries as well. And I'll be helping you guys with that again later in the month. Now, starting off with Aries, we can see that the critical culmination of Saturn is taking place in the 12th house. For me, this typically means that a process that has been taking place in the unconscious realm is about to complete itself, and that process is ready to be more consciously integrated or adapted or seen, recognized, dealt with in the light of conscious awareness. That's because Saturn is transitioning from the 12th to the 1st. So to me, this is one of the culminations of Saturn that you almost cannot talk about without talking about the entrance into the 1st, because that transition is so clearly connected to things becoming conscious that have been working in the unconscious for several years. I would also look at if you have taken time over the past few years as an Aries for more solitude or contemplation or meditation or prayer, time away from the world, that you may be ready to harvest a process of introspection or interiority that you've been working to create the past few years. Like you're ready to really receive the fruits of that interior work, which the 12th house so clearly focuses us on. So let's go forward now to Taurus. For Tauruses, the process of culmination, resolution, completion, distinct transitions are happening within the realm of friends and allies, groups, and community. What are the most meaningful social collectives that you are a part of? And there's been a process of refining, shaping, redirecting your sense of connection to community over the past few years. Where is that process reaching a distinct moment of closure or resolution? In what way are groups and communities and a process related to them reaching a moment of finality, integration, the completion and realization of insights, and the maturity of that process kind of crystallizing? This could also mean that final transitions or endings or the resolution of some difficult karma around friends, groups, allies is taking place. So consider that if you're a Taurus over the next couple of weeks. Again, this is May 13th to about the 25th. So for Geminis, the process that Saturn has been involved with has been a professional process or vocational or public or forward, public, outward facing dimensions of life. How do you show up in the world? What are your gifts, your strengths, your talents? To what do you feel called professionally or more publicly? Has there been difficulty for you in the career arena, so to speak? Saturn over the past few years may have been feelings of boredom or tediousness or hard work or exhaustion. But what have you learned? What insights have you gathered around that more social, public, collective dimension of life and your role as a person who has a job or work in the world? That process may be about reaping rewards and benefits from hard work. It may be about a place of exhaustion or that something's ready to expire that has been slowly building. But consider Saturn culminating in your career house. For Cancers, we look at this in the 9th house, which is fascinating because really over the past few years for Cancers, there's been a process of refining your faith, your beliefs, your outlook on life, your philosophy, a process of learning and exploring what your understanding of something is or the limits of your understanding, the process of faith and doubt, skeptical inquiry, and the development of a healthy sense of doubt versus, maybe a healthy sense of belief. Saturn in the 9th house has been about elders and wisdom, and maybe even the passing of a torch from one generation to the next with respect to things like teaching and learning. I wonder for Cancers right now, what insights are really crystallizing for you around the direction you want to take your life in as it is shaped and guided by what you're learning or what you believe. So watch for a moment of culmination and transition with respect to beliefs and how they may now carry right over into your work in the world. For Leos, the Saturn culmination is taking place in the 8th house. So this anaretic degree in the 8th house has a powerful effect when it comes to bringing completion to karmic or soul contracts with other people. The 8th house speaks to the natural way in which we are obligated to, indebted to, and bound or bonded to one another. And we exchange value with each other in our relationships. We exchange goods and services, of course, but we also exchange deeper karmic soul lessons. Saturn culminating in this house may be about bringing a period of deeper reflection on the bonds of your relationships and the learning process of those bonds to a place of resolution or completion. If it's been harder, deeper, more serious work in relationships, you might be ready to let some of that go and say, thank you. I've been to school, and maybe I'm ready to move on. Certain soul contracts may be ending. The benefits or blessings or the limitations within relationships and the exchange within them may be in some ways peaking or culminating right now. And again, a transition is ready to occur. Some new establishment of value and what is needed, what can be given, what cannot be given in relationships might be experienced as the fruit of this Saturn passage. Let's move on to Virgo. When we look at Virgo rising, we place Saturn into your 7th house. So what comes to mind is the culminating, the transitioning, the completing of karmic conditions relative to relationships, marriage, intimacy, sexuality, any kind of interpersonal partnership or dynamic, your relationship with pleasure and intimacy with other beings, and the dichotomy between self-love, self-development, respect, and that which binds and bonds us to other beings, because most of us cannot evolve and grow without the deeper mirroring of meaningful relationships. What does it mean to be alone for a meaningful period of time? What does it mean to be with someone but feel alone? What does it mean to get more serious, committed, to grow and mature through our relationships? These are the kinds of things that Virgos have maybe been working with for the past couple of years, and now we're reaching a critical point of integration or realization with respect to that process. All right, so for Libras, we look at Saturn reaching this anaretic degree in your 6th house. And for the past couple of years, Saturn in the 6th is not a walk in the park. For most people, this transit involves themes of work, duty, labor, sickness, service, sacrifice. The 6th house refers to the work, the blood, sweat, and tears, and the sacrifice that is a necessary part of cultivating things like material resources, security, pleasure, comfort. The 6th can be a place where we experience the difficulties and hardships of building a job, of building a career, of building crafts and skills that require a lot of work and effort and sacrifice. It's the daily grind. It's the sicknesses and the misfortunes and the challenges that come up and make us feel like it's really hard at times to exist in a secure, comfortable, easy way on the material plane. At the same time, Saturn says in the 6th house, what is worth your time, energy, effort, and sacrifice? What have you been pouring yourself into that you really believe in, that represents a meaningful effort? And what have you been pouring yourself into that isn't meaningful, or that doesn't have some kind of built-in reciprocity? It's like things that we pour ourselves into should turn into things that we value and enjoy, or that create greater security and ease in life. It's an Artha house in the Indian tradition. That means it's associated with the pursuit for material comfort, pleasure, security, and so forth. So Saturn in this house, maybe it's been hard. Maybe there's been uncertainties. Maybe you've been battling health issues while having to pour a lot of work in at the job. That period of time is now coming to a place of completion or resolution, which may be a very good thing. And it's also, what lessons can you take moving forward, having learned what you have? With Scorpio, we see Saturn coming into the 5th house. This is a house that was called the joy of Venus and the house of good fortune. And for Scorpios, Saturn has been in this house for several years, asking you to explore your relationship with pleasure. The 5th house is truly about what makes life enjoyable on a soul level. So we talk about this house as a place of creativity, but what we really mean is there should be some level of creative, sensual, and personal enjoyment and delight in the process of being alive. It's a Dharma house, which means it's connected to pleasure, but it's also connected to selfhood. So where self and happiness meet, we feel a level of satisfaction. Saturn working in this house may be asking you to refine or further clarify or define what it means to experience joy in the right measure, in the right people, in the right places, what it means to feel creatively satisfied. It can also bring up things like childbirth, pregnancy, children, raising children, and maybe some of the duties involved with those things that sometimes make it hard to feel like life is really enjoyable. If there have been themes of creative sacrifice, or the sacrifice of pleasure, or the repression of pleasure, or learning to control appetites and desires a little bit more, that would all be par for the course. But that whole process around what brings me creative satisfaction as a being, what brings me joy and happiness and fulfillment as a being, has been the target, you could say, of this transit for a couple of years right now. How is that culminating? For Sagittarians, we look at Saturn culminating in the 4th house, which is really the interior space as opposed to the 10th house, which is very exterior and public. So first and foremost, over the past several years, how have you been developing within the interior of your soul, the private sphere, the inner life? This is a place that we typically share with fewer people, close people, family, the people we live with. that interiority, Saturn can be a real aid or ally in developing. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if Sagittarians over the past few years have felt like a richer, deeper, more satisfying inner life that's slowly coming forward, but also born out of having to look very seriously at what lies within that maybe you don't show to the world or isn't as visible. The other part of the fourth house would be just a meaningful exploration of family karma, historic ancestral karma, also explorations of home and living environment, and what makes you feel connected, safe, secure at home in life, but also in the actual living environment. How is that process reaching a point of culmination right now? What karmic insights are being harvested, and which of those are sort of crystallizing right now? Let me just change one thing on my screen. Let's move along now to the next sign in order. Get my screen back up here, which is Capricorn. So for Capricorn, we're looking at Saturn in the third house. And for several years now, Saturn in the third for Capricorns may have been about a process of learning. I like to think of the third house as a space that is much like the ninth, but where the ninth sort of points us toward larger universal systems and theories of truth. I think the third is more like the intelligence gained when you're out in the woods and the trees and the water are speaking to you. The third house is called the joy of the moon, and it has to do with the intelligible, material, natural world around us. It's the ecosystem that we live in. It's the village. It's the community. It's the town. It's the neighborhood. And it is a place of learning and wisdom, but it's a place of learning and wisdom through experience and through natural connections to other beings within the local environment. And this makes it a place that's connected to the development of skills and crafts and abilities that have a tangible meaning or place in the environment that we live in. And so a lot of learning here for Capricorns, a lot of maybe looking at your immediate impact in the world around you, and also looking at who and what you're connected to most meaningfully in a more immediate, everyday sense, like refining friendships, refining social connections. There can also be an emphasis on the topic of siblings or peers, the development of skills and intellect, a kind of development of better street smarts, or maybe even emotional, intellectual relating capacity, like you're perhaps more intelligent in how you communicate, or both emotionally and intellectually. I like this process for Capricorns culminating right now, and the transition taking you into a deeper interiority, a deeper focus on home and family. The other thing that I would watch for in the third house with Saturn are limiting ideas and beliefs, and a process of refining or changing ideas, perceptions, outlooks, thought patterns, and maybe growing more mature emotionally and intellectually somehow. Let's go ahead and move on to Aquarius. This process of Saturn in the second house is now reaching its culminating point, a place that has to do with values, assets, resources. It's an Artha house like the 6th and the 10th in Indian astrology, which means it's connected to the pursuit of things like material pleasure, comfort, and security. These are basic. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy, it's hard to focus on spiritual things or psychological growth if you don't feel a very basic level on a survival level that everything's stable, and better than that, comfortable, enjoyable, pleasurable. Saturn in the second house for Aquarians has been about the deeper process of refining your material resources, the felt sense of security, as well as the tangible ways in which you secure a life, the resources available to you, those that you've been developing or cultivating, those that you're in possession of, your relationship to things like food or diet, what you have at your disposal that can support your life force, and some measure of pleasure or happiness. Excuse me, not surprising that Saturn's culmination here could be a relief, insofar as Saturn in the second can sometimes bring themes of almost like deprivation or privation or limitation. Sometimes that's in our head more than it is a real thing. And so even just getting through this period and feeling not as worried or concerned about things like money, finances, and security, that period of maybe deeper angst or worry is coming to a place of resolution or closure. Maybe you've learned some lessons about trusting more. But also, if there have been literal hardships, it wouldn't be surprising to see them sort of lift as Saturn's leaving the second house. Finally, for Pisceans, boy, you've had several years worth of a very personal, psychological, existential transit. Who am I? Where are my limits? What are my yeses and my nos? What are my commitments? How is my health? What is the nature of my physical body? How do I nourish it? What are its capacities and its limits? Saturn in the first can also be very clearly defining what you are, what you're doing, where you're going, in terms of showing you what isn't working or where your no's have been. So it's a kind of via negativa with Saturn always. But this process, so existential, typically pretty heavy while Saturn's in the first house, should be a relief or a feeling of a load being lifted for Pisceans. So we'd like to see that, but also, like, what are you learning at the culminating part of this process that's been so personal? Now, I want to remind everybody of this. Let's take a look at the fact that Saturn has one more little time that it's going to spend in Pisces. So it re-enters Pisces, and it's going to do so, here we go. So around September 1st, 2025, Saturn will re-enter that anaretic degree, and it will spend from September 1st all the way to about the 15th, another 2 weeks at the beginning of September, where we will revisit all of this. Then, through its retrograde, it will station at the 27th degree of Pisces, if I've got that right. No, 26. Yeah. Well, it goes all the way down to 25, my bad. And then it's going to turn direct again. And let's go forward. We'll have it coming back through that anaretic degree one last time. And that will take place. Here we go. Right around February 5th of 2026, all the way till about February 14th. The last period is a little shorter even. But so this will be one of several passes. That's the point. That we'll see from this anaretic Saturn 29 Pisces. So on that note, I hope that this might be the first of several points of culmination around the exact same themes and topics that we've covered in today's horoscope. That's the point. So I will leave you there. After I sign off, you can stick around to learn more about the upcoming program. It starts June 22nd. Really excited for a new group of students to enter Nightlight. I lead all of the classes, and when I sign off, you can learn more about it. Remember, the early bird sale lasts until May 15th, so you still have some time to sign up under the sale price. Need-based tuition is, of course, always there. I hope to see some of you in class soon. Take it easy, everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology that begins at the end of June. June 22nd is our starting date. I'm going to take you over to the course page to tell you more about the program and what you will learn while you are in it. So here we go over to the Nightlight Astrology website. You can find this at nightlightastrology.com. Click on the courses tab, go to the first year course. Now, this program is ideal for people who maybe have a little bit of background already in astrology. Maybe you've done some studying on your own independently, taken some courses or webinars and workshops, but you're looking to deepen your understanding of astrology. And maybe Hellenistic astrology in particular has been calling to you. I'll tell you more about what Hellenistic astrology is in a minute, but on the first year course page, you're going to find everything that the course includes. I want to make the structure of the course clear first, and then at the end, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons that I think anyone might have for studying astrology, and you can see if you check any of those boxes. First of all, there are 30 classes on the year. It's just a little under a year-long program with 30 webinars. Every webinar is 2 to 3 hours long, including a lively Q&A and conversational section after we finished our lesson for the day. Each of those lessons I lead personally through live webinars, so you can attend those live. If you want to follow along at your own pace in your own time on your own schedule, you can always look at the recordings and take those in. And I'm going to show you what the class page looks like so you can see how you can interact with the course as uniquely and creatively as you want to. But you can either attend the live webinars or listen to the recordings or audio or video. In between major units of study within those 30 classes, we have separate classes outside of the 30 classes that are essentially tutoring sessions led by our staff, our course directors. We have 3 of them for our first year program, 3 tutors that help me guide every single class you're in and lead study sessions, and are also staffing an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions, look at charts, practice what you're learning with all of your classmates and with tutors there to help you. They'll always answer questions within a business day. So it's a really well-staffed, well-structured program. In between those major units of study and the breakout sessions, we also have guest speakers that come in throughout the year that you get free access to. The recordings are archived for you in your class folders. So you're getting people within our curriculum. And you're also getting to visit with some astrologers who are outside of the Nightlight School, but we really admire their work, and so we bring them in. You also have a ton of bonus material. With every lesson, we have recommended quizzes, study guides, optional reading. And that allows people who are really, really, intense, deep, like studious types to go as far as you want to with the material, while other people who are maybe, content to take things in at, just kind of taking in the classes, that's there for you too. So you can kind of go as deeply as you want to. The class, if as the year goes on, goes through major units of study in ancient Hellenistic astrology. So if you're not familiar with ancient Hellenistic astrology, this is the earliest form of horoscopic astrology. This is where the astrology that you've probably learned today comes from originally. And that makes some of its features unique. Like, for example, ancient astrologers utilized whole sign houses. We study why they used whole sign houses, how they used them, and we study the why behind really everything: houses, signs, planets, aspects, dignities, essential and accidental dignities, delineation approaches. How do you read and predict within a natal chart? All of those theoretical areas of astrology we not only learn how to do, but we learn the why behind it. And this is what I think people find most empowering about the course, is that ancient astrology really helps to give you the rationale for everything so that you have the insight available to go off script. What I mean by that is, like, let's say you're learning about a sign, Aries or Taurus or a Gemini, something like that. Ancient astrology won't just give you a list of the adjectives or keywords or descriptions of, say, a sign or a planet. It will give you an underlying philosophical explanation that then allows you to extrapolate from it the kinds of lists that you read in textbooks, which means you'll have an understanding of why everything on a list in a textbook is there in the first place. And you'll also have the insight and creativity available to add things to the list that are a part of your own unique intuition and contribution to astrology. And this is what ancient astrologers wanted students of astrology to learn: the why behind everything. So this is a class where, even though you're seeing things like planet signs, houses, dignities, aspects, and you're like, oh, I've already learned about those things. Not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology. I don't mean to sound condescending, but like, truly, most people's experience coming through this program is, wow, I had no idea all that I didn't know about the roots of everything that I've understood thus far about astrology. So it really is about digging into the philosophical core of why we do everything. And then you have greater intuitive and creative capacity as an astrological craftsman or craftswoman. So anyway, that's a brief explanation of why I think Hellenistic astrology is important. Not to mention that ancient astrology was really focused on our ability to accurately describe and predict things in the realm of karma, fate, and destiny, whereas modern astrology's hallmark and strength is psychological depth. And so when you put the two together in our program, which is why it's called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, I think you have something really special. So on that note, you can see everything that we cover here. So there's a video with some of our alumni you can watch. Everything is there on the page. Now, there are 5 reasons that I want to touch on briefly before I tell you about your payment options and need-based tuition. These are 5 reasons to study astrology that if you mark any of these boxes, especially if you mark several of them, then I think it's a good indication that you might be ideal for this program, might be an ideal fit. So the first one is if you find that astrology has become a part of your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly spiritual practice, it is a part of how you lead an inner life, then there is nothing more empowering than deepening your connection to that language, because that puts you more in the driver's seat. It's always good to have astrologers that you rely on, teachers that you listen to, get a little objective perspective, especially when you're looking at your own chart through a reading. But there's really nothing more empowering than learning to speak the language at a deeper level for yourself. And if that calls to you, if you want to understand things and be able to speak more confidently and clearly about this sacred language that you love, and this is a great reason to take a structured program. Number 2 is that you feel called to read charts for people. Look, not everyone who takes our programs is on a professional track, but we have 4 years worth of professional training programs at Nightlight that will prepare you to read professionally for others if that's the path that you're on. Maybe you don't even know if you're on that path. That's fine too. Many people take our programs just for the sake of their own personal enrichment, and again, to be kind of more in the driver's seat with respect to your astrological journey. You have more of an understanding. You can be more confident in reading symbols and experiencing transits with your own understanding that you've cultivated. But sometimes people want to read for other people. This will definitely set you up to do that. We have a certification track where you can take exams at the end of every year. They're optional. You don't have to if you're not on that level of interest. Number 3, you have done a lot of self-study. You've heard things from here and there, but you're looking to bring it all together. It is overwhelming to study astrology on your own. So if you want organization, structure, and coherence, what you're getting in this program is going on 15 years of training astrologers, 15 years of developing curriculum that has in mind the overwhelm that many people experience. And this program is structured year 1, year 2, year 3, however far you want to go with our curriculum, to give you an organized, structured, coherent way of understanding the history and language of astrology from both ancient times to modern times in all of the vastness that the field includes. And also, as we go, we want to give you the confidence that you are a part now of an astrological lineage. Astrology has always been practitioner-based. Coming through Nightlight, you are going to have the opportunity to feel aligned with a lineage. If you like my work, if you feel aligned with the way I speak the language, then this might be a good reason to come study with us. Now, if you're seeking the why behind things, if you're like, yeah, that's interesting, I get it, I understand, but why? Why signs? What's the difference between a sign and a house? Why did they ever come up with a sign and a house? What's the distinction philosophically? Why does Mars represent this? Why does Mars in this sign represent that? If you are someone who feels empowered by understanding the why behind things, you are going to love this program, because that's how I am as a teacher. That's how I am as a person. And that's what this program is really all about. Number 5, you are looking for astrological community. Look, I think Nightlight is unique in terms of the kind of warmth, acceptance, safety, and inclusiveness that our community includes intellectually, spiritually. We are really pride ourselves on being a peaceful kind of family. I'm a Cancer, right? So it's kind of a family-oriented environment. So anyway, I will end it there. If you check any of those boxes, you may want to consider studying with us. Now, I'm going to take you over to 2 things. I want to show you the dashboard. So here is the Thinkific page. You're going to join this, and on your dashboard, you're going to find any courses that you've enrolled in at Nightlight, and there are many, so you may end up in being involved in multiple courses, and you'll find that they're all there on your dashboard. Click on one of them, and it will take you in. You're going to find that on the left-hand side, there's orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar, all the technical stuff you need to know when you join the course. And then you're going to find that when you go through the lessons, that the lesson includes the video, the audio, the slides, the transcripts, the Q&A box text if you couldn't make it live and see what people were talking about, flashcards, homework, a bonus PDF with all sorts of additional recommended reading, bonus videos, additional video links for bonus material. So every single time that you want to visit something within the course, everything is nicely organized. So you can see here, I'm going to pause this before it starts going, but you can embed the video right there. It's embedded and you can watch it. And then if you wanted to, you could also, right here, you could also download the video and watch it on your own device. And that's same for the audio as well. And then as you go, you'll see all of the lessons are laid out. The study sessions are also recorded if you can't make those live. So everything is nicely arranged on the website for you. And that makes it a course that if you wanted to take 3 years to accomplish, you could take 3 years to accomplish. If you want to take it for the sake of getting certified, you have the full year plus an additional year to take the exam. So 2 years total that we give people if you're on a professional track. But most people complete the program in a year. And a lot of people, over 50% of our students go on to our year 2 and then our year 3 and horary programs as well. Now, final thing I'm going to show you is right here. You're going to find here is the enrollment options at the bottom of the first year course page. Again, this is at nightlightastrology.com, and you're going to click on the first year course, go to the bottom. The early bird payment saves you several $100s off the cost of the course. That's available till May 15th. Early bird installment plan saves you on the installment plan, regular cost of the course. That's also only available until May 15th. And then need-based tuition. All of our programs include a need-based option where we give you a sliding scale and we say, you pick your monthly tuition number within this sliding scale, which is greatly reduced off the normal tuition price. That is for people who are on a fixed or limited income, receiving disabilities, single mom, whatever the case might be. We want to make sure that nobody's priced out of studying astrology. So you don't have to feel any shame. If that is you, if you need help, if you want to take this, but you need to make it work within a tight budget, we get it. Times are tough right now. We don't think people should be priced out of studying a sacred subject like astrology. So we've been offering need-based pricing for 15 years. Nightlight is a donation-based school. It started that way. We have a sliding scale, so it's kind of like donation. You get to choose your rate anyhow. So if that's something that will help you, please use it. Thank you for listening to this. I hope it gave you a really deep and comprehensive introduction to what the course is all about and why you might find it exciting to come study with us starting at the end of June. So any questions you have about the program as you're visiting the course, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be glad to talk about anything that you have questions about. We are here and we have a wonderful staff of people at Nightlight who will be a part of your learning experience and are all glad to help you. All right, that's it. We'll see you again later. Bye.